Here's a creature that's swimming around icebergs in the Barents Sea. That water temperature is 0 or below 0. It's very, very cold. And here they're able to do it very well because they have some unique features that allow them to keep warm in cold waters. First off, they're big. Big, massive animals don't cool down very quickly. So when you're big like that, you can stay warm because you simply have more thermal inertia. They have a cylindrical body shape. Look at some of these pictures of them in other waters. I show these later. You'll see that the animal is a perfect cylinder. If you remember from your old high school physics days, a cylinder, an object shaped like this, has the most mass for the least amount of surface area. So there's not a lot of surface area to lose heat to, and they keep it all centered up in course. That's why it's a cylindrical body shape. They're heavily insulated. Leatherbacks are fat. Remember I said that they put on 200 kilograms of weight, and they do it in a matter of months when they go up north. That's all laid up as fats. The word turtleneck actually is real for these guys. Around their neck is a big collar of fat. Around each limb is a big collar of fat. They're incredibly well-insulated animals. That's something called countercurrent circulation. This is something we see in marine mammal pockets, some marine mammal species as well. It's illustrated here. Blood that's flowing out from the internal core of the body is warm. It passes next to vessels that are paired up that are flowing, the venous return flowing back in. And so heat is exchanged across those vessels. So heat goes from here out to these, and it pre-warms the blood coming back in, so that blood doesn't chill the internal side of the body. So it's very interesting. They've got this fantastic heat retention capacity. Then they swim almost constantly. They're generating a lot of heat all the time, and they're a heavily insulated body. They keep themselves warm. They can be as much as 15 degrees C above 5-degree ambient water. That's a tremendous temperature differential for a reptile. Leatherbacks are the only entirely oceanic species. That means that this creature spends its entire life in the open ocean on the high seas. It doesn't come into coastal waters except occasionally to feed or during the breeding season. The rest of the time, it's out at sea, and I'll show you some very graphic examples of what that means.
When is the breeding season?
Breeding season depends on where you are in the world. Here in the Caribbean, for example, the breeding season is midsummer. It just started. Actually, we never really had nesting stop this year in Trinidad because we have such a large number of turtles. But it starts here about March and it runs through about July, typically. In the Pacific, in the eastern Pacific, in Mexico and Costa Rica, the breeding season is in the middle of winter. I've often said I can work on leatherback nesting beaches 12 months a year, just depending on what coast I'm in. The reason for that is that those that are nesting in Mexico come from South America. They come up in the southern hemisphere, and those nesting in the Caribbean come down in the northern hemisphere. So it's driven by what their foraging seasons look like on the feeding ground. As I said, leatherbacks are jellyfish eaters. You've seen this photo. This is the reason why they go up into those northern cold waters. It's not often understood or not often realized by the general public is that colder waters are more productive. That's where our big salmon fisheries, our halibut fisheries, and our cod fisheries, and big fisheries are in cold water. Cold water holds more oxygen, has more, it tends to have a higher nutrient load, and so cold water is more productive than warm waters. And so the jellyfish get really big. One of their favorites, this one right here, is called the lion's mane jelly, Cyanea capillata. This jellyfish can have a bell that's 6 feet in diameter, tentacles that are 80 to 100 feet long. So they don't fool around. They're eating big stuff. That's why they have to have this sharp jaws to bite off pieces. They can't swallow the whole thing at once. And that's typical of these northern waters which they travel to. Now, leatherbacks are one of 7 species of marine turtle. And these little sheets here that I brought are little ID guides. These are kind of fun. These are something that we pass out to the Caribbean. We have them in like 6 languages. We even have them in Mento. But they're one of 7 species. They're the largest, as I said. The other species are the green turtle, Chilenumitis. This is the herbivorous green turtle. Typically, if you see turtles in Hawaii, this is what you'll see, or all through tropical areas. The Kemp's ridley and the almond ridley, closely related. They're the smallest turtles. This is the Tater depressus, the Australian flatbacks, an endemic species to Australia. They're one of those strange, unique creatures of Australia. The hawksbill sea turtle and loggerhead. This is what we very commonly have here off the North Carolina coast. And this species is highly tropical, primarily a coral reef dweller. As I said, it's very, very unique. Leatherbacks are very, very large. One of the most dramatic things about leatherbacks is, as an oceanic animal, they have to be very, very streamlined. Now, remember, I've already told you one hint about how they move through the water so efficiently by having that hydrodynamic form. But you look at their body shape, and you look at the way the skin is laid over the body. Leatherbacks are called leatherbacks because they don't have this hard shell. Instead, they have a very flexible, rubbery-like carapace. But leather is not really, it's a bit of a misnomer. This skin is paper thin and fragile as anything. It's more like a high-speed swimmer's suit. It's very, very fragile. In fact, you could almost cut it with your fingernail. It's a very, very, actually a very delicate animal, despite its large bulk and its large size. Leatherbacks are one of three family groups, prehistorically speaking. There were three family groups: the Protostegus, the Cheloniides, and the Dermacolides. Leatherbacks are the only living example of the Dermacolides. The Protostegidae, these big guys here, are well extinct. They've been extinct for 65 million years. And all we have left is the hard-shelled turtles, what would be green turtles, foxbills, and the like, and the leatherback. They're in their own family group because, as I said, their morphology, their body form is very, very different. This is the standard turtle model. A standard turtle model for a terrestrial turtle or any sea turtle is that rib cage is split open, the ribs are fused together, that forms the back. The pelvic girdle is pulled inside the rib cage, the pectoral girdle is pulled inside the rib cage. So imagine taking your body and doing that with it, and then opening your rib cage and fusing the ribs together, and now you're on your way to being a turtle. Leatherbacks are very different. They do have the pelvic and the pectoral girdles inside the rib cage, but the ribs are not fused together. Instead, they are attached to the vertebral column, and they're embedded in this matrix of very fatty tissue. Again, it feels like stiff belt rubber. You almost can flex it this way. Then overlying that is this set of small bones. They're about the size, about that big around, about half an inch diameter. They look like somebody dropped a jigsaw puzzle on the turtle's back. They formed over the turtle. Leatherbacks keep a very flexible skeleton all through their lives. In fact, you know, as we age, our bones build up more calcium salts and they get stiffer, right? Because we're getting bigger, we need that extra structural strength. Especially some of us tend to get bigger this way more than we get bigger this way. Leatherbacks, and so when we're young, when we're babies, our bones are very flexible and very soft. There's a lot of cartilage in them. Leatherbacks never change that ratio. Their cartilage to bone ratio stays the same throughout their lives. So they have very flexible skeletons. The point I'm trying to make here is that leatherbacks are beautifully formed, flexible animals designed for traveling through the world's oceans very, very efficiently. They are the perfect consumer design. Leatherbacks are also the oldest of the marine turtles. In fact, leatherbacks are about 90 million years old as a species. And often what I tell my students is we have to be aware of that kind of age of the species because a lot of the selective pressures that developed during the time that the species first was on the planet don't exist today. Consider it for a minute that a leatherback was around when the world's continents looked like this. It was a very different place. There were no ice caps. Sea level was 25 meters above current levels. It was very warm and wet, lots of inland seas. This is the world in which the leatherback came from. This is the world in which we got the leatherback sea turtle.
So the fossils is what?
Yeah, the fossil records go back about 90 million years. And they're not a good fossilizing species because of that high cartilage content of their bone.
But skeleton's characteristic.
But the skeleton's characteristic. And in fact, yeah, these are really good questions because, in fact, we know that the ancient Dermacolides, of which there were about 25 to 30 genera, all have that same jaw. Very weak, lightweight jaw, so we know they were jelly feeders even back 90 million years ago.
Maybe this is a stupid question, but do they withdraw within their...
No, they can't.
No, I didn't think so.
Yeah, good question. None of the sea turtles can pull their heads through the flippers in. You know why? Is because to become an aquatic animal, the basic turtle model started on land. You know this whole thing about how life sort of evolved from a marine environment to a terrestrial environment to take advantage of the new land that was developing, and you can see that the new land was developing and becoming habitable.